Hi Dave, welcome back to the May Night Podcast.
Hi Dave.
As some of you may know, we've been trying something new recently. We've decided to spend some time exploring our takes on changes in the cinematic universe. For this episode, we will do our gut reaction scores as usual, but we will only speak for a maximum of 10 minutes. Then we'll do our what if segment each, and with whatever time we have remaining, we'll chat and fill in our cinephiles. We have 50 minutes in total. The film for this episode is The Silence of the Lambs, a psychological horror film released in 1991 that delves into the chilling interactions between a young FBI cadet and a manipulative, cannibalistic serial killer. Who's going first out of me and you?
It's my turn now.
Okay, right. I am ready. So on the count of three, we're each going to give our gut reaction scores. Freddie, are you ready?
I am ready.
3, 2, 1.
8.4.
8.2.
Ooh, mate,
We keep getting close.
I literally just changed it on the line then from 8.2.
You know what as well? I just looked at my 8.2 and thought, is that a little low?
Literally the same. I had it up and said I'd wrote 8.2 earlier, and then I was like, nah, it's better. You know what? As well, I had Exorcist 8.3, and I was like, it's worse than Exorcist, and I've come full circle since this evening and been like, it's better than Exorcist 8.4.
Definitely better than the
What did you give Exorcist?
I don't know.
I'm going to say you gave it 7.8.
Should we have a look? Exorcist. How the hell did you know that?
I don't know why I remembered that. Freakish.
Okay, so 8.4. It's a bloody good film. One comment I needed to make. Mm-hmm. I think that Anthony Hopkins might be my favorite villain performance ever in that. I think it might be more captivating for me than Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah.
I actually think that is my favorite villain performance I've ever watched.
He's certainly a classic, isn't he? He's almost the go-to, certainly the go-to popular pick. Yeah. Funnily enough, rewatching it, I felt that maybe a bit hammy for me.
Hammy?
Just a touch. So like hammy is a way of describing an acting performance where it's a bit OTT, bit over the top, going for it. Okay. Sometimes hamminess, some overacting works very well.
Oh, I got to disagree with you there, man.
I think it's I've always put that performance down as like one of the greats. And I was looking at it thinking, I think that Norman Bates in Psycho is better, for instance.
Oh, that's... Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
The thing is, Norman Bates had a lot of screen time where he wasn't having to be particularly evil and he just had to be normal. So if we're just talking about performance here...
Yeah, I guess the standard deviation from Norman Bates compared to his contemporaries, I was like, holy cow, this is amazing.
But that's not the same as being better. Of course,
no, but I that for certain is true for me. I'm like, okay, yes. And even with that as well, I'm like, yeah, kind of the realism he brought to it and the craziness, it was just enough for me. It was like, you can see he's hiding something, whereas... maybe it's because the character itself on the page, it fills me with a bit of confusion. Like, Hannibal's like the worst person in the world, but he's clearly very charming. I've watched in the past one of those extensive analysing evil videos on him.
Okay.
And it's very interesting because it takes like the whole lore. Yeah. The whole literature
4 films.
of it. 4 films, but there's books as well.
Books.
And there's, prequels and backstories. His whole origin story has been really fleshed out, and his supernatural capabilities, effectively being able to smell people. Yeah, you can smell when someone's bleeding. He can smell what cologne you're wearing. In one instance in this film, he says, "You usually wear blah blah."
Yeah,
but not today.
Yeah,
and stuff. He has similar perfect pitch where he's. Supposedly able to even hear, if he's listening to an orchestra, he's able to hear if someone's out of tune. Like it's heightened to the degree of unrealism. So I guess then if you've watched a video like that and you're like, oh shit, this guy does everything, and then you see maybe a small portion of that, maybe that also affects your perception of the film.
I think that we have found time, or certainly I have, and I think you'll agree, time and time again, that it is incredibly difficult to separate the performance from the character unless you have multiple performances of the same character. you know, and I think that part of the thing that cemented it for me was I saw a different person playing Hannibal Lecter doing a scene, and then I saw Hannibal Lecter doing the same scene. I don't know if you know where it was just a conversation between him and another FBI agent that wasn't Starling, but it was done by Anthony Hopkins, and it was done by this other person playing Hannibal Lecter at some point.
Well, like Mads Mikkelsen or something.
It could have been. I can't.
Was it a modern
no, it
one?
wasn't Mikkelsen. No, it definitely wasn't him.
Was it Brian Cox?
I don't know.
Was it an older guy?
He was similar age profile, but he was just
Cox,
much less convincing. But
yeah.
it was one of those rare times where you get to see two people do the same character, and it really just hammered home just how special Anthony Hopkins' performance of it was, because it was like, I can see how easy it would be to make this not that good and kind of look a bit corny.
So I think for me, watching it again, I was like, there are times when it errs too much on a caricature.
That's it, right? But that's an on paper thing, isn't it?
Of course, yeah. But not just on paper. I felt like his overt delivery.
Okay.
It surprised me a bit. I was like, okay. And it actually was affecting the way that I designed my change.
Okay.
That, I think, impacted my thoughts on his performance.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I don't know. I think I disagree, but I understand what you're saying. I think
like,
you're
in the majority.
You mentioned... I mean, like the scene where I saw the two different performances, for example, they both had the same issue that you raised earlier, where he was like, "Oh, you're wearing that same cologne that you wore in the courtroom that day." He said that to both of them,
right?
Both Hannibal Lecters, and it was like Anthony Hopkins wasn't doing a bad job of that. That was just that silly. Norman Bates is great because he's tasteful and realistic. It's not Anthony Hopkins' fault that this character can smell what someone was wearing in a courtroom.
Yeah, it wasn't. To be clear, it wasn't anything to do with the character. It was to do with how he was portrayed. Wow.
That's a big take, that, Freddie. I'm putting that on YouTube.
What I'm going to say, let me just say.
Anthony Hopkins did a bad job of Hannibal Lecter.
I don't think Anthony Hopkins is a bit shit. No, he was great. He was amazing.
He was.
I just don't. You know, you said right then something that I would have agreed with before, which is this is maybe the greatest villainous performance in cinema history. And I surprised myself thinking there are slight flaws, and only slight. I don't think it's a perfect performance for me, from my own metrics.
You went into it having seen it before, been impressed by it before, and aware that the whole world thinks of this as being one of the greatest villain performances of all time. Yes. And so then the only things that stand out are when it's anything but perfect.
Yeah. For instance, you mentioned Heath Ledger. I do think that I didn't used to, but partly because maybe I was thinking, I'm getting affected by I don't like when people get affected by recency bias, but you know, it's been a while since The Dark Knight came out now, and rewatching Heath Ledger's Joker, I would personally say that I felt his performance was better than Hopkins. Yeah,
it's a tough one. Yeah, I was careful to say it could be, because I am with you on the fact that it also could be that Heath Ledger was better for, like, and I know this is just my opinion and my taste, but like, I do think that Hopkins' performance seems to have an age to the performing that Heath Ledger didn't. Like, you know, when you watch, I certainly find that when you watch older things, there's something about the performances that I can't quite put my finger on that feels like an older film's performance.
We spoke about it with 12 Angry Men, where the influence of theatre is really clear. So the big acting that comes from theatre. Now, a lot of the English performers, I mean, Hopkins is Welsh, but came from this whole drama school, theatre performance background, classically trained, they'd say.
Okay.
Very famous in that period. And Gary Oldman's a great example, one of my favourite actors. You know, the big acting style. So it's being able to own a stage compared to being able to own a screen. And so Americans that were taught on film became a lot more subdued. Yeah. And then Brits that came over, in some ways it really helped, because typically they are, you know, I'm generalizing here, but you might argue that they're better at, say, accents and being chameleons, taking on a variety of different roles because they have to push themselves on stage and they have to inhabit characters with vastly different wardrobes, and they have to really overtly perform. Where that maybe falls apart is some of the more subtler nuance, maybe the micro expressions of a Denzel Washington, say, is unbelievably impressive. Now, the performances that came out of that 90s period, and Hopkins being one of them, seemed to be from that era of still a very heavy drama school theatre influence, whereas now you'd probably say the influence of film acting is a bit more noticeable.
When was Heath Ledger's performance? 2008,
9, 2000,
something like that.
Yeah.
So that's a decade later. So, you know.
Well, like 15, almost 2 decades.
Oh, yes, it was 91, right? Yeah. So, you're knocking on for almost 20 years later.
So maybe when you say like there's something about the differences in performance, I seem to think the influence of theatre is a bit less noticeable. You almost get people specialise almost in film acting versus theatre acting, whereas there seemed to be more of a pipeline back in the day of theatre actors going into film.
That makes sense. And I think as well, like, you know, if I wanted to kind of come up with a way of agreeing with the point that you're making, in my own words, it would be that there are no really details that I would change about Hopkins' performance. But if you just took it as a whole package and just dialed the size of this thing back by like 5 to 10%, it might not have been worse for that.
Yeah, and that's when I say I'm comparing him, in my opinion, to some of the great villain performances that I can think
if it's like a
the top of my head.
Yeah.
So for me, it wouldn't be number one, is what I'm saying. It's still obviously in that pantheon of great villain performances.
Yeah, you have to put that disclaimer in these things where it's like you start that thought process and that conversation going like, Anthony Hopkins isn't as good as I thought. And what you mean is, he's not
the best of all time.
The single best villain performance I've ever seen. Yeah. No, but it's always worth saying. Well, listen, I reckon we slide right into our What If segment. Should I go first since you...
Why don't you go first on this one?
Okay. Today, I have brought a change for those listening from the start of the episode. We have always got to bring a what if, more than a change. So here it is. Buffalo Bill, the murderer in Silence of the Lambs, cornered Clarice, the detective, in the pitch black basement. He was wearing night vision goggles.
Yes.
And he had a hand cannon pointed at her back.
Where are you going with this?
Now, my question today is obviously quite speculative, Freddie. But I think that maybe he could have killed her. Now, assuming that did happen, what would have happened to the girl stuck down the well?
Okay.
Freddie, what if Buffalo Bill did kill Clarice that day? Would Catherine Martin, the lady down the well, would she have survived? I think that there are 5 questions, so we're going to have to be quicker, that need answering to determine the fate of Catherine. We have 10 minutes to come to a decision. Freddie, are you ready? I'm keeping that.
I'm ready, Freddie. Yeah, let's go.
Okay. I think the first thing we need to ask ourselves is who are the relevant people and where are they?
Okay.
So why don't you get started with the relevant people for us?
So her mum, the senator, and that team.
Okay.
Is it Callahan? That's not his name.
Well, I was thinking Catherine would be one of the first ones we'd mentioned.
Oh, I thought you meant relevant other people. Okay.
I mean people who could be relevant to the outcome of this scenario right now, immediately following the death of Starling.
Okay.
So he's shot her in his basement with his night vision goggles on. Who's going to save her, or is she going to die, or what?
So she's there. She's got the dog still.
She's still got the dog. So a little context: she is got the dog as a hostage in there, so I'm counting that as a second character. So you've got Catherine Martin, the hostage in the well. You've got Precious, the dog. You've got Bill.
You've got Dead Agent Starling.
Dead Agent Starling, I didn't count because I can't see her having an impact on the outcome.
Unless Bill changes tact and thinks, I'm going to use her for part of my soup.
Well, that is definitely possible.
But he hasn't lotioned her up. Maybe he keeps her. Let's remove her from this picture.
Well, she's probably not size 14 as well. Which
no, I was wondering about the size thing didn't make
Hannibal
sense.
Lecter, potentially.
He is on the loose.
And the FBI. Those were the 5 people who I thought they could have an impact on the outcome. Where are they, Freddie?
We've got Catherine Martin.
Yep.
In a pit.
Yep.
Dog down in the pit.
In the pit with her, being held hostage.
Buffalo Bill, so he has had no issues shooting her. He's just shot her.
He's just shot her in the back, in the basement.
So he's fine.
Yep.
He's in his world, his maze of misfortune.
Yep. So you got those three in Bill's house.
Yep. You've got Hannibal Lecter. So by the end, is he in somewhere in Africa?
So at the point where Starling died, this is at least a day following the breakout from Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
I can also tell you where Bill's house is.
Chicago.
No.
That's where the FBI is.
That's where the FBI are.
Where is Bill's house?
Belvedere, Ohio.
Ohio.
So you have the FBI in Chicago. You have Catherine Martin, Precious the hostage, and Bill the murderer in Ohio. And you have Anthony Hopkins, who broke out from prison about at least a day ago in Memphis, Tennessee, which would leave you with the following map, Freddie.
You better be bringing this up on the video.
Oh, it's coming up in the video.
100%.
People are looking at it. So the FBI are about 7 hours away by car. Just to give you, they wouldn't necessarily drive, but just to give you an idea of the distance,
Car.
the FBI are 7 hours away and Hannibal is 10 hours away. So we know where the relevant parties are. We've got the FBI in Chicago. We've got Bill and the victim in Belvedere, Ohio. And you've got Hannibal, who broke out from Memphis, Tennessee, 10 hours away, at least 10 hours ago. So the next question is, would Hannibal intervene? I think that he could intervene because it's been long enough for him to have made the distance. But do you think that he actually would come and intervene in this scenario?
How would he know?
He knew that he sent the FBI to the wrong place. He knew that Starling had the hint in the folder that he left her. So he knew that they were all going after Bill, like at the minute right now. He knows something's going on.
But what was the hint in the folder?
The hint in the folder was, don't you think that these random bodies seem a little bit random? And then he also said, what do we covet? We covet what we know very well or something. Basically saying his first victim, he knew his first victim very, very well. So go to Belvedere, Ohio, where his first victim was.
Right.
So he basically sent her there.
Yeah, okay.
So he knows that she's going
He
there.
knows she's in Belvedere. He knows Belvedere, Ohio, but he doesn't know that she's dead.
No.
He doesn't go. I think if he was going to go, he went in the original film because he would have no reason not to. So unless he was like, I want to check Agent Starling's okay, and he did that without us being told about it, and then the next thing we know, he's off in somewhere in Africa making a phone call. That's the only way he would ever decide to go.
Yeah.
To be keeping tabs.
I thought that given some of the behaviors that he showed in the film, he could just be crazy enough to do it for the kicks. He could go over, and I'm not saying intervene to protect Starling. I just mean, would he be relevant to the outcome for Catherine Martin? We're trying to figure out if Catherine would survive. And if Hannibal shows up, that's going to change the outcome. Would he show up?
Not the only reason why I'd show up, but if he was going to show up in the film we watched where Starling didn't die, he had to have shown up in that because I don't think there would have been any other information he could have got.
Yeah, I think that's true.
He would just had to have been in both. He would just have been curious. We've got motive. He could have just been curious and wanted to see what happened.
Yeah.
So he might have
to play games.
When it all went down and Starling did solve it and the FBI came, he might have been there in the background.
But I think that he wouldn't.
I
think he could, but there's no reason. And also, he's on a mission to kill the prison warden. Like, it's obvious he knew what he was going to do when he got out. And it would just be a crazy risk to take. So I think we can cross Hannibal out of the outcome here. So the question that really remains now is either would Catherine have escaped by herself or would the FBI have managed to get there in time? I can't remember why, but I've put question number 3, would Catherine have escaped by herself first? I've got a little context. So Bill is probably in a bit of a panic frenzy because he's just killed an FBI agent. he would know that eventually the FBI will follow her trail to his house, so he'll figure out that he has to move eventually. Now, the threat Catherine has against him is this: I have your beloved dog in my arms, which if you shoot at me, I will shield myself with. And I think, given the almost straight down shot of the depth of the well, that's a very real threat. Or if he does anything daft, she'll break the dog's neck. So that's the scenario that she has managed to get herself into. Do you think that she was getting
Put it in the basket?
Yeah.
What are his moves? How desperate does he get? He knows that they are he knows it's a matter of time. She's made it to him. The FBI are on their way.
Yeah.
He's got maybe optimistically a day.
Yeah.
Should we say?
Yeah.
Before they realise. Like, let's be honest, old Jack Crawford he was in contact with Starling recently, and then he's going to be no communication anymore.
Yeah.
She was in Belvedere, Ohio.
Yeah.
We need to go to Belvedere, Ohio and work out where Agent Starling is. Probably happens less than a day.
Yeah.
So he's not dumb.
No, he's careful and he's cunning. They said that in the film. He plays things safe, so he knows what he's doing.
So is he tied to this idea of I need this woman? Does he leave her in there?
Well, but the dog's down there.
So what for him? Yeah, dog's down there.
How much does he care about the dog? He looked pretty upset.
He was very upset.
He looked very upset when that dog got caught. Like,
so
it's
a question of how the risk for him is. I think he would be like, the minute he kills Agent Starling, he'd probably take what suit he had and just leave the girl.
You think he would have left Precious behind?
I don't think he has enough time to say he kills her.
Yeah.
He kills her just for the sake of killing her at that point.
Yeah.
He's shown he's actually not. He does have emotion.
Yeah.
Like, he's upset when she is pleading with him. He is upset.
Yeah.
He wants to see her as an object. Now, then killing her for the sake of it, because he wouldn't have time to do the necessary. He wouldn't have time to probably carry her out and take her.
No.
We'd see that's too much of a risk to get her out of that pit and then carry her in his van. And
somehow
also
with the dog surviving.
all the evidence.
Yeah.
So let's say he says, I'm not going to kill her. Then it's like, I need to save the dog. So it's all down to, is the risk of going down there, getting the dog, staving off this woman who he's saying is not going to kill.
Yeah.
Is that worth it for him? And then he has to get back out.
So is it go on the run straight away, or somehow try to rescue his dog and risk getting caught? Is that basically the situation that he's got to decide in?
But either of them, Catherine Martin survives.
Would he ever just shoot her then? That was what you were just saying.
I don't think so. I don't think he'd kill her for the sake of it.
Because it's not going to... They've got all the evidence in the world on him, with or without Catherine Martin. So it's not like leaving her behind is going to risk him getting caught anymore, because, like, they've got his house. They've got everything he's ever owned. They know exactly who he is.
Yeah. And it's only based on that interaction they said about him wanting to view her as an object, and then this would be killing purely in cold blood for the sake of killing, because he would come to terms with the fact that he can't use her for his skin suit.
And so there's no benefit to him killing her.
It would just be, I'm going to kill her to kill someone.
So does he go on the run, or does he just give up and give her the phone and wait for the FBI?
I think he probably goes on the run.
Leaves the dog.
Because he's still got this. He probably goes on the run and takes the suit, takes his work, because that's not.
He would sacrifice the dog for his
sacrifice the dog, sacrifice the bloody butterfly thing, whatever those are.
Yeah.
Sacrificing a lot there. Big move. So the only reason I'd say maybe he'd kill her, if you wanted to work out, if you wanted to go through, let's pretend, okay, the only way I could see him wanting to kill her is out of hatred.
Yeah,
because he's like, he's in a situation where she's got his dog, and also he'll probably have to, if he goes on the run, he'll have to leave all of his like precious bloody, whatever they're called. Moth, yeah.
Things.
And so maybe he just kills her out of spite.
He could.
And in which case, could the FBI ever get there in time?
Well, that, Freddie, is the exact next question. Question 4, could the FBI get there in time? So let's say for a moment, when we reckon it looks like probably she's surviving from just her own situation, with or without the FBI. The FBI know that she's in Belvedere, Ohio, right?
Mm-hmm. They'll probably work that out quite quickly.
Do they know that she's in Belvedere, Ohio? Because you mentioned that she had a conversation with Starling. The only evidence that I found in favor of what the FBI know is when Clarice figures it out, she is having a conversation with a fellow FBI agent and friend, Ardelia Mapp, who she says, Belvedere, Ohio, that's where I'm going. But I don't remember them ever saying to Crawford or anything like that, I'm going to Belvedere, Ohio.
I think let's give them as much benefit of the doubt as possible. So they go to that place, realize they're at the wrong place. No, we've gone to Chicago. We're in the wrong area. Agent Starling's gone somewhere else. Let's say Crawford does fancy her and he's thinking about her and he thinks, I better check on Starling. Can't get hold of her.
I can help. Why don't we track back? They start panicking and go in the actual film.
Yeah.
When they realize they've been tricked, they go into panic mode anyway.
Right.
They're like, oh my God, what about Starling?
Okay.
So for whatever miraculous reason, they do know that something's wrong with Catherine.
So then we've got, okay, let's, all the power of the FBI, the bloody detective, supreme, let's presume they're supreme detectives.
Yeah.
They've got all their resources. They're able to piece together quick. Jack Crawford is known to be a smart guy.
Yeah.
A smart fella, not a fart smeller. And then he pieces it together quickly. He calls her friend what's her name?
Ardelia Mapp.
He calls Ardelia Mapp.
Very fitting for this video, I might add.
You've got a large Ardelia. So he goes... Let's say they work out that they're in Belvedere, Ohio quickly. Mm-hmm. And with helicopters, with transportation.
They would have to mobilize local forces, wouldn't they? Jack Crawford isn't getting there in time.
Yes, of course they do that. Yeah, so they send the local forces. But they still, how quickly from Belvedere, Ohio, do they get to the exact address of Mr. Jamie Gum?
You've got two nodes, haven't you? You've got how long does it take them to figure out Belvedere, Ohio, and then how long does it take them to figure out James, I think his name was.
Yeah.
How long does it take them to figure out within Belvedere, Ohio, where exactly Clarice was? I think that it would take them a while to figure out Belvedere, Ohio. I think that the alarm bells would have to be raised high enough and loud enough that Ardelia Mapp, her friend, is made aware of Clarice's missing in action scenario.
Yeah.
And then she would have to then have the intuition to go and volunteer that information.
Yeah. And then they'd have to basically have this, they'd have to piece together what?
Yeah.
Because
then they would go to Belvedere.
Starling went to Belvedere. She went to the victim's house.
Yep.
Saw some pictures, which were they relevant? Was it him taking them? Something like that. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Then she went to a friend and the friend pointed them to the dressmaker.
The tailors or yeah.
And then she was like, I'll check that place. And that's where she went.
And that's how she figured it out.
And that's how
so how long does it take them once they figured out from Ardelia Mapp that she's in Belvedere?
Let's presume
God knows how long that's going to take.
They must have gone. What was security footage like in those days?
When was it set? Was it set when it was recorded?
Let's presume it's set 91.
Yeah, so
maybe late 80s. So there's some.
Oh, I didn't think about CCTV though.
They might be thinking immediately we scour everything to see who she met. Okay, who's this person?
Even that takes a while though to get hold of all that CCTV and scan it.
Minimum, like what? Let's say half a day.
So you either need somebody to so you need to figure out that she's in Belvedere. Then you need either main character level detective, so like Crawford, to be in Belvedere to follow the paper trail, the breadcrumbs, or you need somebody to manage to pull all of the CCTV footage from Belvedere, Ohio, and happen to find her whereabouts. It's going to be a day at least before they get their best case scenario.
Yeah, okay. So I think we can say that the death of Catherine Martin is determined by Jane Gum alone. And whether if he out of spite or if he, in cold blood decides I'm going to kill her because she's ruined my life.
Could be panic.
The panic. Oh, that's another element. Would it be more dangerous to keep her alive because she would be able to drastically increase their chance of finding him?
But that's the question: is would she actually be able to give them anything useful?
I think with the ability they had for profiling at that point, my understanding is if someone has seen a person, they can give some very good artists. What are they called? The criminal artists, the people who do the sketches.
Is it going to be a portrait?
I don't know.
Portrait artist?
Something portrait.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, but it's the ones who specifically work with law enforcement to get someone's... They basically ask them a series of questions that unlocks more and more information, and then they create a profile. And my understanding is they're usually pretty accurate, or some of them can be very accurate. So that if he knows that, that is a massive risk. Yeah. So if he decides to go on the run, then he probably kills her, probably gets over it and kills her.
The big question mark is about how he feels about Precious, the dog.
Yeah, with that in mind, then it then becomes Precious.
Yeah. So the fate of Catherine Martin is determined by...
Is James Gumm a stand-up guy? Is Buffalo Bill actually a sweetheart?
Does he decide that Catherine is too much of a risk to his getaway and his running away from the FBI to risk allowing to live for the sake of his dog's life?
I think it's on Catherine Martin. Is she able to prey on his heart? Is she able to basically...
She did manage
a
to
bit for
find
a while.
That chink in his armor.
I think she needs to... If she can work around that rather than the I hate you. Now, the big issue for her is she's gone from that ray of hope of having the FBI there. Not only that, but Clarice Starling say, you are safe.
Yeah.
And then she quite clearly hears her getting killed.
Yeah.
And then Buffalo Bill coming out. The panic that would set in after, like, beyond your worst nightmare of having that ray of hope after potentially resigning yourself to your fate. I mean,
I don't think she's surviving this situation,
she
Freddie.
is brown bread.
I think that, based on what we've said, we've decided that Catherine Martin would die. The FBI would not be there in time. Hannibal Lecter wouldn't be interested, wouldn't take the risk, so he wouldn't be involved. Clarice Starling would be dead, so it would be just down to Catherine Martin, Precious, and Bill to figure it out. And we reckon that Bill would not be willing to take the risk. No. And the panic and the fear of the moment would mean that bullets would likely end up getting fired.
But what do you think?
Viewers, you've now heard all the evidence. Please let us know what you think. Do you think that Catherine Martin would have survived? Do you think that the FBI would have got there in time? Do you think that we're on something? Do you think that we've completely missed the mark? Please let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to check out our other videos. We've got some stuff coming up on 500 Days of Summer, some more stuff on Silence of the Lambs, and Life is Beautiful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Dave, thanks so much for listening.
Cheers, Dave. Bye-bye.
All right, cool. So what if for Freddie? Do you need anything, or are you...
Fredzilla. Let's see.
Fredzilla.
Let's see what I've done here. Jambo, for this week's one change, yet again, I faced some real difficulty, and this was across the board. We had it for the last film. We got it for this one. Each film we looked at had a clear vision, and I mostly agreed with what they were trying to achieve, and their execution was uniformly stellar. I made up that description. I actually wrote this all, and it's just packaged it exactly how I wrote. I said, rewrite this for me. And I think it got tired of the back and forth. I'd written a lot in this one. So in the case of Silence of the Lambs, something struck me while rewatching it, and I was inspired to take a new approach to my change. Similarly with 500 Days of Summer. I tried to look at things I didn't like, struggled with that. Let's have a look at some what if, or in this case, it wasn't a what if, but rather let's look at a structural rechanging and how this affects it. And I had a spark of inspiration for this, and it was from a recent interview with writer-director Jordan Peele. Are you familiar?
I know the name.
This person is as synonymous with his sketch show Key and Peele as he is for directing the modern horror classic Get Out, which you may...
I do know the one. Yeah, I know the one.
So, in the interview, I believe it was with Conan, but it might have been Stephen Colbert. Someone will correct me. Jordan Peele mentioned that the difference between horror and comedy is simply the music that's playing. And never before have I been as convinced as when I was rewatching Silence of the Lambs that this could be true.
What, is there a scene or just the whole film?
So without further ado, please sit back and explore my thoughts on what if The Silence of the Lambs was an admittedly very dark comedy.
Oh my goodness me. I like it, man. Let's go. I'm excited.
So, reasons why this could be a dark comedy. Bizarre characters. So we've got Hannibal Lecter, we've got Buffalo Bill. They are already larger than life figures, but they've also got eccentricities that bordered on the caricature-ish. I think could be very easy to. There's a flip of a coin there. They're close, aren't they? Yeah. You were saying like they're pushing the boundaries of what's scary. Quite easily could be a bit funny here if we just positioned it a bit differently.
You ate Weetabix last week. Yes. I can smell it on you.
I could smell that. Would he fuck you? So, the ChatGPT has tried to run with this a bit, but imagine Hannibal's polite yet menacing demeanour turned into an over-the-top parody. Whatever. Bizarre characters, check. Hammy performances. We spoke about this earlier. Anthony Hopkins' portrayal of Hannibal Lecter, both intense and theatrical. Very good for comedy. Here it gives an example of his famous line, which some people find scary. But really, when he says, I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. Don't you think that could be a punchline?
Yeah, 100%.
So really, does it depend on the delivery or does it just depend on the setting? They've made it eerie when maybe it doesn't need to be. Ridiculous dialogue. The dialogue in the film, when taken out of context or delivered differently, could be absurdly funny. For instance, it puts the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again. All that scene, horrific.
Yeah, it's pretty dark, that pretty. That's not a comedy.
But is it a bit stupid?
Twisted.
It's a dark comedy.
No, I get what you're saying. I hear it.
Specific scenes. What we're all here for. Give me examples, Freddie. That's what you're screaming for. For anyone listening. The Buffalo Bill dance scene, obviously a go-to. The old flipping of the penis into himself.
Oh, yeah.
Would you fuck me?
Yeah.
I'd fuck me. Brilliant. Is it disturbing?
We've all said that once or twice.
Just in the mirror, would you fuck me? Which is disturbing in the original film for some, but it could easily be transformed into a darkly comedic moment with the absurd dance moves and quirky music. The scene where Hannibal taunts Senator Ruth Martin, the whole love your suit scene, where he just out of nowhere starts going, breastfeeder, do your titties hurt? I found rewatching this so many times thinking like, this is so close to being a ridiculous, over-the-top comedy.
You're ruining this film for me, man.
So I think I thought of this idea from Peele quite early, and it affected. The more I watched it, the more I thought that could be so funny. It's just not because. So general ridiculousness. The very premise, of a cannibal who is called Hannibal. Come on, we're not fucking dumb. How are you trying to convince me?
Cannibal.
Like, seriously, so obviously that's a coincidence. It's a bloody headline writer's dream that really, did that have that much thought put into it? This is a trick. We're supposed to take this seriously,
What
aren't we?
is it?
Has anyone heard of the name Hannibal since the 12th century? So, those are my thoughts. All right, let me hear. Now that I've given my outline, before we go into what I want to do to put this to the test, what do you think of that?
I think there were definitely, you're not wrong, there are some very ridiculous moments in it where, like, if it wasn't in the context of violent, graphic murdering, then it genuinely could just be taken as hilarious. Do I think that maybe a slight change in the soundtrack would make it a comedy or anything? I think we've still got a little bit of distance to go before this thing becomes a comedy, Fred.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Jambo. Because we're about to dive headfirst into copyright territory.
All right, okay.
So this is what my script says. I'm glad we agree, Jambo. I'm glad we agree that it has the potential to fit Peele's hypothesis. Why don't we put it to the test? Jambo, I've got a series of scenes from the film that I'm going to attempt to recite that I think, under a different guise, might be a bit more humorous than it is scary, horrific, psychologically disturbing. Take your pick. Your job will be to choose a score from a random iconic film and play it over the top quite loudly into your microphone. Hopefully, I think we'll do one and see if the audio works. I'll try and do an example. Okay. So you get an idea of what I'm aiming for. Yeah. And then we'll see. We'll see what it sounds like. We'll see if it works. Initially, careful with that. Initially, I did try and think of 4 things, and I thought maybe you think of some because it'll be funny for me as well. Now this is I'm going to do a surprise one, but hopefully you get a sense of the sort of scope I'm thinking. So I'm thinking scores that are dramatic and iconic. Don't need to be comedy scores. They can just be, well, I'll show you what I mean. Okay. It rubs the lotion on its skin. It does it whenever it's told. Mister, my family will pay cash. Whatever ransom you're asking for, they'll pay it. It rubs the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yes, it will, precious. It'll get the hose. Okay, mister. If you let me go, I won't press charges. I promise. See, my mom is a real important woman. I guess you already know that. Now places the lotion in the basket. Please. I want to go home. Please, it places the lotion in the basket. I want to see my mommy put the fucking lotion in the basket.
Put the lotion in the basket. God, you are a dark man, Freddie. You're a dark.
That was right of the row.
You are a dark man.
Buffalo Bill.
All right. I tell you what will help me is if you give me an idea of the scenes that we're working with.
Okay. The next scene we're going to look at is between Hannibal Lecter and Clarice Starling. Mm-hmm. It's going to be. I'll just picture one of those scenes.
Let's try.
I do have one, which which might be quite good.
Yeah, go on. I'm all ears.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
That is such a shout.
I was thinking that might be a good one, and I forgot which one I was going to do first, but I reckon that one we could try.
We should definitely be doing that.
We should give it a try.
I was thinking, is there like a whimsical Wes Anderson sort of thing we could put on the background there?
What about the Pink Panther soundtrack?
Yeah, that's sort of like...
Give that a try. See how that works.
All right, you're not expecting me to do these impressions, are you?
Oh, I was going to do them, and you. Yeah. What I think though, on one of them, try and do a surprising one because I'll find it quite funny to see what you come up with.
All right. Should I skip?
Oh yeah. After your father's murder, you were orphaned. You went to live with your cousins on a sheep and horse ranch in Montana, and one morning I just ran away. Not just, Clarice. What set you off? You started at what time? Early, still dark. And something woke you, didn't it? Was it a dream? What was it? I heard a strange noise. What was it? It was screaming, some kind of screaming, like a child's voice. What did you do? I went downstairs, outside. I crept into the barn. I was so scared to look inside. Oh, I had to. What did you see, Clarice? What did you see? Lions. They were screaming. They were slaughtering the spring lambs. Oh, they were screaming, and you ran away. Oh, first I tried to free them. I opened the gate to their pen, but they wouldn't run. They were just stood there confused. They wouldn't run, but you could, and you did, didn't you? Yes, I took one lamb, I ran away as fast as I could. Where were you going, Clarice? I don't know. I didn't have any food, any water. It was very cold, so very cold. I thought if I could just save one, but it's so heavy, so heavy. I didn't get more than a few miles when the sheriff car picked me up. I was so angry. He sent me to live in the orphanage in Bozeman. I never saw the ranch again. What became of that lamb, Clarice? He killed him. You still wake up sometimes, don't you? Wake up in the dark and hear the screaming of the lambs. And you think if you save poor Catherine, you could make them stop, don't you? You think if Catherine lives, you won't wake up in the dark ever again to that awful screaming of the lambs.
You know what?
That's a good ending. That was you know what? That was too long.
Maybe a little, yeah. There was a point where I was like...
funny, and then I was like, there's too much of this.
He'll have to cut this off now, won't he?
All right.
Oh, he's still going.
All right. I reckon...
That way, no. I thought that the cadence of the song and the rhythm of the song with that conversation was really cool. I really liked it.
Why don't we try Pirates of the Caribbean?
Let's try Pirates of the Caribbean. Do you want? I'll get the music up.
You do the music.
Focus on what you're doing. I was already halfway through that video.
Why don't we talk about Miss Moffat? You wanted me to find him. His real name was Benjamin Raspail, a former patient of mine, whose romantic attachments ran to, shall we say, the exotic. I did not kill him, merely tucked him away, very much as I found him after he'd missed 3 appointments. If you didn't kill him, then who did, sir? Who can say? Best thing for him, really. His therapy was going nowhere. His dress, makeup. Raspail was a transvestite. In life, oh no. Garden variety, manic depressive. Tedious, very tedious. I now just think of him as a kind of experiment. A fledgling killer's first effort at transformation. How did you feel when you saw him, Clarice? Scared at first, then exhilarated. Jack Crawford is helping your career. Apparently he likes you, and you like him. I never thought about it. Do you think Jack Crawford wants you sexually? True, he is much older. But do you think he visualizes scenarios, exchanges, fucking you? That doesn't interest me, and frankly, it's the sort of thing mates would say. Not anymore.
Killer line at the end of that. Pink Panther was slightly better than that, I thought, for the match of the two. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I did. I thought Pink Panther worked pretty well. What about... Do you have any more lined up?
Well, I was thinking maybe a Harry Potter one could be fun to try, but just because it's so emotive, it's so. But if you have an idea, mate, I'm all ears.
Well, let's just try this one and see if this works.
I was gonna say Star Wars.
Buffalo Bill's real name is Louis Friend. I met him just once. He was referred to me in April or May 1980 by my patient Benjamin Raspail. They were lovers, you see, but Raspail had become very frightened. Apparently, Louis had murdered a transient and done things with his skin. We need his address and physical description. Tell me, Senator, did you nurse Catherine yourself? What? Did you breastfeed her? Now, wait a minute. Yes, I did. Toughened your nipples, didn't it? You son of a bitch. Amputate a man's leg and he can still feel it tickling. Tell me, Mum, when your little girl is on the slab, where will it tickle you? Take this thing back to Baltimore. 5'10", strongly built, about 180 pounds, hair blonde, eyes pale blue. He'd be about 35 now. He said he lived in Philadelphia, but he may have lied. That's all I can remember, Mum, but if I think of anything more, I'll let you know. And Senator, just one more thing. Love your suit.
That was so long. How long did you wait for that music?
I was thinking, is this going to go to a crescendo? No,
it didn't. No, I just started again. Oh,
thanks for humouring me with that.
That was good fun. That, you know what, I reckon. I reckon the song choice is where we could get, if we got the right ones there, that could have been
Oh, yeah, for sure. Which one do you reckon was the best of the four?
Pink Panther was the best for me.
Pink Panther worked, but it went on too long. I quite enjoyed Star Wars because it was so ridiculous. I thought that the Star Wars one, the actual dialogue was the most ridiculous. I remember looking at this, like, what the fuck are we...
Yeah.
This is where it could be comedic.
Yeah. It's so ridiculous that it's kind of getting to the point where it's just like, come on now, what are we doing here, guys?
Yeah, exactly.
How
are we doing for time?
We are out of time, but I would be willing to just quickly go for it and just chuck a couple... Oh, what did I put for mine? What was it? 8.2. 8.2. We're just going to rattle through and quickly fill this in. So, plot, what do you reckon? It's
10.
good plot. Yeah. 9.
9.
All right, cool. Character.
10.
Dialogue. Ooh. After your what if, I thought that it was weakened by that. You convinced me. It was a bit silly at times.
It was a bit much, was it?
Was it enough to knock it down to an 8?
Yeah.
All right. We'll go with 8. Performance.
10.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be on it.
Got Oscars for both Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah. Visuals.
I thought it was really well set. It felt eerie.
It was good.
You know what, the direction, particularly for the scenes where she sees Hannibal, like the first scene that she comes down and goes through all
that was really cool.
And then he's good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. Visuals pretty good.
7?
Yeah.
Sound. Was there a soundtrack in this? I can't remember.
Score, wasn't it?
What do you reckon?
No idea.
7. Oh.
Impact 10.
Yeah.
Bish bash bosh.
Cool. So it can be done quick. Okay, wow. So it's done pretty well. So the Mate Night podcast has now rated The Silence of the Lambs out of 10 in 9 different categories. We have rated it the following: 8.4 out of 10 for Fred's enjoyment, 8.2 out of 10 for Jambo's enjoyment, 9 for plot, 10 for character, 8 for dialogue, 10 for performance, 7 for visual, 7 for sound, and 10 for impact. Give it an average score of 8.62 out of 10, making it the 6th greatest film of all time, just ahead of Apocalypse Now, just behind Team America.
I'm glad you did it. I'm glad you said. Yeah. Like we should say is just behind Team America.
Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're listening at this point, I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.